Hey guys, tonight we're plunging headfirst into a world where fear clung to every breath, where the very air felt toxic, and a silent, invisible enemy stalked every street. Imagine, if you will, the creeping dread as the Black Death tightens its grip on your city. You hear the mournful cries, smell the cloying scent of sickness, and see the ominous X marked on doors. You know, deep down, that you probably won't survive this without some truly specialized, albeit terrifying help. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The doctor's grim arrival, asterisk, asterisk. The air is thick with despair. You can practically taste the desperation as the plague ravages your town, turning bustling markets into ghost towns overnight. Cities, once vibrant, now echo with the tolling of death bells, and a grim truth settles heavy in your chest. Traditional healers are overwhelmed, powerless against this relentless tide. This is where the plague doctor steps in, not as a beacon of hope, but as a chilling necessity. They emerge from the shadows, often clad in unsettling garb, a walking premonition of fate. Historians still argue whether the actual time's historical fear of plague doctors stemmed more from their association with death or from their often brutal and ineffective treatments. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? That the person arriving to help might just symbolize your imminent departure. A mainstream historical fact often overlooked is that the Black Death, peaking in the 14th century, wiped out an estimated 75 to 200 million people, a staggering portion of Europe's population. What's perhaps even quirkier is that some of these early plague doctors weren't even formally trained physicians. They could be second-rate doctors, or sometimes out of sheer desperation, even butchers were hired for the job. Talk about getting cut off at the knees! Iconic beaked mask's purpose. Asterisk, asterisk. Now, let's talk about the fashion statement that still gives us the creeps. That iconic, unsettling, beaked mask. You see it approaching, long and dark, making the wearer look less like a healer and more like a monstrous bird. But there was a practical, if utterly misguided, reason for this bizarre accessory. The mainstream historical fact is that the mask, particularly the beak, was designed to be stuffed with aromatic substances. Think of it as an early, much more dramatic air freshener. The quirky tidbit here is that the specific design of this full plague doctor's outfit, mask included, is often credited to Charles de Lorme, who was a chief physician to several French kings in the 17th century. He really leaned into the aesthetic, didn't he? Historians still debate whether the intent of the herbs was purely miasmatic, to ward off the bad air, or miasma believed to cause the disease, or if there was some underlying, albeit primitive, understanding of airborne transmission. Either way, you probably wouldn't want to get a whiff of whatever concoction they were carrying in there. Protective gear, albeit flawed. Asterisk, asterisk beyond the beak. The plague doctor's full ensemble was quite the sight, a collection of gear intended to protect even if it often fell short. You're looking at a figure draped in a heavy, ankle-length overcoat, often made of waxed canvas or leather. This, along with their gloves, boots, and a wide-brimmed hat, completed their look, making them utterly indistinguishable from the person next to them, which, let's be honest, probably added to the whole terrifying vibe. The mainstream historical fact is that this complete outfit, including the waxed cloaks and leather gloves, was meant to create a barrier between the doctor and the diseased patient. The quirky tidbit? That waxed leather was specifically chosen because it was believed to repel the bad air or miasma thought to cause the plague, literally a waterproof suit for invisible airborne nasties. Researchers continue to question the true effectiveness of this waxed fabric in preventing flea bites, which, as we now know, were actually the primary vector for the disease. Turns out, a fancy suit doesn't do much against a determined flea, does it? Treatments: bleeding and buboes. Asterisk, asterisk. As the doctor approaches, you brace yourself because their treatments were, to put it mildly, agonizing. You're not getting a lollipop and a kind word here. The mainstream historical fact is that bloodletting was a common practice, performed with the belief that it would rebalance the body's humors, a concept that seems a little off now. Like trying to fix a flat tire by draining the gas tank. They'd slice open a vein, hoping to drain out the bad blood, leaving you feeling weaker, perhaps, but supposedly healthier. Then there were the buboes, those terrifying swollen lymph nodes that defined the plague. The quirky tidbit here is that lancing these buboes was often done with a hot iron, a method thought to cauterize the wound and draw out the poison. Imagine that searing pain, the smell of burning flesh, all in the name of a cure. Medical historians still discuss the extent to which these painful treatments caused more harm than good, often leading to secondary infections. It makes you wonder if the cure was almost as bad as the disease, doesn't it? Herbal remedies and foul odors? Asterisk, asterisk. Now, remember that beak mask we talked about? It wasn't just for show, as gross as the reality might be. The mainstream historical fact is that the beak of the mask was typically stuffed with strong-smelling herbs like mint, myrrh, or cloves. These weren't just for a pleasant aroma, they were believed to filter out the plague-carrying bad air. The quirky tidbit, however, is that some recipes for these mask fillings included even more unusual ingredients, like crushed toad or viper skin, a truly potent potpourri, reflecting a strange blend of early herbalism and folk magic. You probably need a strong stomach just to breathe through that. Scholars still debate the psychological impact of these pungent aromas. Did they offer genuine comfort, a sense of protection, or merely reinforce the terrifying mystique of the plague doctor, making their arrival even more unsettling? Hard to say if it was aromatherapy or just assault on the senses. Superstition and scientific struggle. Asterisk, asterisk. In an era where the plague seemed to defy all logic, the line between superstition and early scientific attempts became incredibly blurred. You'd find remedies passed down through generations, alongside fledgling medical theories. The mainstream historical fact is that astrological charts were frequently consulted to determine the best time for treatments or even when to apply poultices, as if the stars held the secret to curing buboes. The quirky tidbit? Carrying amulets made of arsenic or even a dried toad was considered a protective measure by some during this incredibly desperate time. Historians continue to explore the precise tipping point where systematic observation began to outweigh purely superstitious beliefs in the fight against the plague. It was a chaotic soup of ideas, some truly bizarre, others hinting at future understanding. Financial realities and social standing. Asterisk, asterisk. So, who were these terrifying figures and what was their standing in society? You might think them pariahs, but it's a little more complex. The mainstream historical fact is that many plague doctors were actually employed by cities, often on special contracts, that offered high pay for their incredibly dangerous work. After all, not many people were lining up for a job with a guaranteed high mortality rate. The quirky tidbit here is that some of these doctors were even given permission to perform. Autopsies, a rare and often controversial privilege at the time, all in a desperate attempt to try and understand the mysterious disease that was decimating populations. Researchers still analyze how public perception of these doctors fluctuated. Were they seen as heroic saviors, risking their lives, or opportunistic undertakers profiting from widespread misery? It's a murky gray area, much like their waxed cloaks in the dim, plague-ridden streets. Legacy and lasting cultural impact. Asterisks, asterisks. And so, we arrive at the enduring image of the plague doctor. You see it everywhere, don't you? From Halloween costumes to horror movies, the figure with the beak mask has truly transcended its historical context. The mainstream historical fact is that the plague doctor's image has become an iconic symbol of disease and fear, particularly in historical and horror genres, a chilling reminder of past pandemics. The quirky tidbit is that you even see this image in Venetian Carnival, where the plague doctor mask, once a symbol of dread, is now transformed into one of elaborate theatrical anonymity. A strange twist of fate for such a grim figure. Cultural theorists still ponder why this specific, chilling figure, more than any other historical medical practitioner, has so firmly embedded itself in our collective consciousness. Perhaps it's the sheer mystery, the visual drama, or the stark reminder of humanity's vulnerability in the face of an invisible enemy. Now, as the final shadows stretch and the last echoes of our journey fade, allow your mind to gently drift. The harsh realities of the past, the chilling imagery, they can all begin to soften, receding into the quiet corners of your memory. Tonight's story, though steeped in ancient fears, reminds us of the resilience of the human spirit and how even in the darkest times, we search for understanding, for comfort, for a way forward. Let the sounds around you become a soothing lullaby, a gentle hum against the canvas of the night. Feel the tension ease from your shoulders, your breath deepening, slowing. The world outside can wait just for a little while longer. Rest now, allow the stillness to settle over you, a soft blanket of calm. Sweet dreams.